All right. Welcome, everybody, to Winning Tactics' first live stream podcast. Excited here to be with Sam Lewis. He is the owner of WearTheFund, the brainchild behind the company that gives back. So welcome, Sam. Glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
So I own WearTheFund Give Back Apparel, as Adam was alluding to, and thank you for having me. So we are a custom apparel decorator. We do screen printing, embroidery, dye sublimation, essentially what I like to call 360-degree apparel decoration. So we mostly work business to business as well as with a lot of nonprofits because of the fact that we give back. So when we say give back, every order that we do gives a percentage back to a nonprofit of our client's choosing. So if it's a nonprofit ordering, they can give it back to themselves. Or of course, if it's a for-profit, they can choose the nonprofit that they want to support. Started about 9 years ago in the garage in Fort Myers. I was born and raised here, and so went to school at the University of Florida, go Gators, and came back and with my psych degree and started WTF or t-shirt business. Really didn't have any intention of it going the way that it did. It was more or less a retail idea. I wanted to have clever t-shirts and graphic tees with WTF graphics that had a positive social spin that supported charities similar to Tom's or my main role model Patagonia with their Give Back Mission. But at the end of the day, it took a turn on its own into wholesale. Once I realized it was such a more robust market. And so now the long-term vision, the 10, 15-year vision from day one became to build infrastructure to be able to produce high-quality apparel on our own instead of outsourcing it, whether it's overseas or whatnot, and then to get back into retail eventually, which is still to be determined as far as what date, as we're still building the wholesale infrastructure.
Awesome. Yeah, I absolutely, the first time we met, which has been, quite a while now, absolutely fell in love with your mission and values of what you're trying to build. And so I totally appreciate the give back approach to your business. I think it shows that social responsibility and in what businesses should be representing in the communities that they're in. And just going beyond that kind of, we're a business and we need to make money. So
exactly. Yeah, our mission is creating a world where profit's not the bottom line, one shirt at a time. And through our give back model, we've actually been able to generate near almost $200,000 through our sales for nonprofits, mostly locally, which just simply wouldn't have gone back into the community without our mission. So it's been an uphill battle, and we're in a very competitive industry. But one of our goals is to prove that it's possible with any business. If it's possible in the textile industry with a very small percentage net margin, it's possible in any industry to give back on a daily basis rather than now and then.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate that. So let's kind of jump into the topic for today, which is small businesses and everything, all this chaos that's going on in the world. I totally appreciate the meme that came out around April Fools that said, nobody should be running any April Fools jokes because what we have going on is joke enough, right? And so how are you and your family doing with COVID right now? You guys all staying healthy? And
yeah, so we're following the guidelines, trying to stay at home as much as possible. My significant other works for a local nonprofit, and so they've been at home for a few weeks now. I've still been going to the office, but unfortunately, most of our staff is on unemployment. And we've had to, our sales have gone to almost near zero. So we typically on average on a daily basis do about $2,000 to $3,000 in revenue, whereas now we're at, like I said, near zero sales. So pretty much everything is halted, mostly due to canceled events and people just not spending money with the uncertainty in the markets. And and everything going on. So it's been an interesting journey so far.
Yeah, no, I can concur with that one. It has been a challenge. Everything for a lot of people just came to a screeching halt and very suddenly. And so it's interesting. I was doing some reading the other day that the majority of small businesses don't even have a 1 month cushion to really survive on. So let alone that doesn't even account for the amount of people that don't even have $400 in a savings account in case of emergency. So this has been interesting times for all of us. Outside of sales just absolutely kind of coming to a halt for you. What are some of the other challenges that you're facing at WearTheFund?
So as you mentioned, probably the biggest is cash flow. Just like as you said, most small businesses don't have more than a month or even two in cash reserves in case of a pandemic, which of course nobody could have expected in 2020. So that along with the sales, I think they're of course intertwined. And so really that has been the top thing, all of a sudden shifting to trying to figure out the new federal regulations and stimulus packages. That's probably what's taken up most of my time, because that, to me, which we can talk about more, is kind of was the first low hanging fruit. When sales drop to zero, most of your staff is going on unemployment, and you don't have much cash left in the bank. That's of course the purpose of the stimulus package, and so getting those completed as quickly as possible. Anything that was possible, I did, and so that was the biggest challenge right out of the gate, was navigating that. There was obviously the consistent changes, and then the delays from the SBA and the banks saying that things are ready, and then they weren't. So, kind of sitting on the edge of my seat saying, okay, when are things going to be ready? And we expect a little bit of help to keep the ship afloat until things start to change a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that it's awesome to see, the SBA and really the government in itself stepping up to help the infrastructure of small businesses. And there are tons and tons of great programs out there right now, and even more coming on a daily basis, at least from what I've seen. What are some of the programs you were able to take advantage of or that you found?
So I'm still waiting to find out. I'm hoping by the end of this week something comes through. But we did two federal. One was of course, the Paycheck Protection Program, which we were able to get submitted yesterday through our bank. And then the other one was the emergency or the economic injury disaster loan, the EIDL, which is supposed to be a $10,000 advance or up to. And that was supposed to be 3 days. 3 days for us would have been last Thursday. And so we're still waiting with no real update. And then, of course, Florida did the emergency bridge loan, which also I spoke to some contacts at the SBA or SBDC, and they're overwhelmed. Again, it's nobody's fault. Everyone's just trying to make do with what's in front of them, and there certainly our systems are overwhelmed. So I think patience is key, and finding other low hanging fruit. Yeah,
no, I would agree with you. In a lot of the conversations I've had, I've been talking about as a business, what are you doing to shift? And so that's I think is the mindset that we need to start taking with it. There are definitely programs out there to help us stay afloat, but what I think is going to help businesses build that strength coming out of this is how do you shift your model? Everybody was used to their model, and obviously with what you're doing, heavy in retail, in the retail and relying on people that have a consistent cash flow. that has changed. It's how do you make those shifts to come out of this and create alternative revenue streams that maybe weren't there in the first place. Have you thought down that path yet, or?
So we actually did launch a fundraiser for the Southwest Florida Emergency Relief Fund, which was put together by the United Way of Lee Hendrick Glades Okeechobee and the Southwest Florida Community Foundation in collaboration with Conrick Marketing, as well as the Southwest Florida Strong Community, which is a community that was created for people to connect and businesses to connect in the wake of the epidemic. So we created a t-shirt fundraiser, but in reality, and this is just my take on it, is, I think most businesses kind of have to find out, what is the most value to them, whether that is trying to find a new stream of revenue. For us, it was, of course, get everything submitted for the stimulus packages to help us stay afloat, depending on how long this is going to last until our clientele starts coming back, online, going into their offices and rescheduling their events, so on and so forth. But for us, really, it was more of, if we can nail that down, then what's going to bring the most value to us? And that really was getting a lot of those things done that we usually can't when we're swamped, 24/7, every day of the year. We're always, backlogged. Doing things in the 25th hour, which, sounds bad, but it's just the nature of our business, which is constant deadlines, especially when you throw rush orders and things like that in there, there's always the next job, the next day. So right now, while we have slowed down, we really took the initiative to really work on the business and get things organized and get things cleaned up, maintenance, evaluating strategy and long-term goals. So that's really where we found, our value. And so that's what we've been working on for the past couple of weeks, is just working on the business because, as cliche as it is, it's almost impossible to do when things are normal. So, I've always valued the idea of turning negatives into positives. And, as negative as the situation is and as broad as it is, the one huge positive that I found is, well, at least I can tackle some things that I've been putting off for whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or 3 years. Some of those things are finally getting done, and that's personally and professionally. So we have, to answer your question, so we have done a couple little things, but the reality is, in my belief, is there's only so many businesses that are going to be able to find that gold rush that is going to actually be comparable to their normal state of affairs in the wake of this, especially quickly, to substitute that cash flow with new revenue stream. For example, the restaurants that are doing to-go and delivery, that's wonderful. And that was the most, to me, the most obvious way for them to adapt and be able to not just go to zero sales. So that's excellent, but they still have the issue, and the restaurant workers still have the issue, is that they don't need the same amount of employees, and there's still that problem. So, but yeah, that's our main thing, was finding value and working on the business during this time.
Yeah, I think that's an important call out, is taking a step back and really redefining the foundation of what your business is. Maybe not changing it, but just going through the motion of revisiting your long-term vision, your short-term vision, your mission, your values, and going, is everything that we've done over the last year, 2 years, whatever that period is, in line with those things? And if not, where do we kind of lose sight of that, and how do we get back on track with that? So I think it's a good, really good exercise to go through, even when you are busy and you don't have time for it. It's really a strong exercise to go through. But times like this, I find it to be more critical, because when you lay those foundations down, it really sets you up for the next steps. We will come out of this. I wholeheartely believe we'll come out of this. And when you have those foundations in place, that's what's gonna help you come out, in a Ferrari versus a little Pinto.
Right, right, and exactly, and that's how I feel. Is that I feel that if if your business can survive this period, and you're able to make those positives come to light and use the time wisely, and not just throw your hands up and say, well, there's nothing I can do. We don't have any income coming in, so I'm just going to kind of relax. Which personally, I don't think that's bad either. Most people are burnout. Most of the year because it's just never ending. I think we're also going to see a societal shift. I've read a few articles on it, just in the way people think and people's realization that they can, have more of a work-life balance, and or integration, as some say, and that they can do more work from home. And I think even from a top level down, because so many people are attached to the button seats, philosophy versus allowing people to work remote. And a lot of evidence is showing that, working remote, can be much more beneficial than requiring somebody to be in the office and be distracted with constant questions and meetings and all of that. So I think we'll see a major shift, psychologically for a lot of people, management level down. And, at the same time, as you mentioned, setting yourself up for that success, versus being on the hamster wheel, so that when things do come back, live per se, where most everybody is back at the helm and back where we were before this all started. Which again, who knows when that'll be? But when it does, I think it'll come back really strong. And what you did during this time is going to define how you're able to move on from that point, versus kind of starting from where you left off, which for us, like I said, was always crazy, always, a lot of times stressful, and so what we're really trying to do, I'm actually reading a book right now to make my point, that I would highly suggest, called It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work. And so that's about a company, Basecamp, who, they have a very different philosophy from most businesses, and how they, what they expect from their employees, and the way that they approach work. And so, my goal is, when we do come out of this, is that we're busy, which I think we will be, because everybody's going to be, catching up and need the stuff that they needed before everything got started all at once. But also being able to do that at a higher level of, with more calm, as they say, be able to do it with a calm state of mind and enjoy work, versus being on the hamster wheel.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I've been talking to a lot of people about outcome-based thinking versus time management-based thinking, because that's that big transition that a lot of people need to make, leaders need to make, from working a team that's working remote versus a team that you can walk over to their desk and say, "What are you working on right now?"
Right.
And so I see a lot of opportunity for us as a business community to really take into that mindset, that philosophy of, if we focus on the outcome, I think we can be more successful overall than trying to time manage, every little minutia minute of every single day. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, what I'm seeing more and more, personally, and that's why, I suggest that book so highly, is that, you can sit in your office for 8 or 10 hours and, try and force yourself to work and concentrate and focus. But, if every 10 minutes or 15 minutes, your phone buzzes, or, an associate knocks on your door and says, "Hey, did you get this?" There's a lot of minutia, as you said, that occur that not only waste time, that probably wasn't necessary, wasn't an emergency, didn't need to be communicated right then and there. But it also takes time to rebound that and get back into your zone. And, I found I started working more from home, at the beginning of this year. And what I found was I was getting way more work done being at home, no one around me, was able to silence my phone and just focus on the task at hand. And I was just knocking out tasks left and right. And when I literally stepped back in the office, my productivity dropped. I don't know by how much, but significantly, I would say at least 50%, simply because with 4, 5, 6 other people, I'm the boss. And so people will say, oh, Sam's here, let me ask him about this. Let me ask him about this. We'll take 5 or 6 people if everyone has a question. And then there's asides, and then there's, storytelling and all of those things. My time is completely drained from what I actually walked into work to do. And that is just the nature of, people being around each other as people want to interact. And so it's, I do think it's a top-down initiative for, business owners and managers to make the conscious decision that they want to change that structure where they set the standard that people, basically respect other people's time and focus. And that's, something I think people take for granted. Hey, so-and-so must be available, or their door's open, so let me go and ask them something trivial. Maybe it was important, but in the book I'm reading, it talks about kind of a checklist of, how to know not to bother somebody. And basically, if, can you solve it yourself and is it an emergency? If you can solve it yourself and it's not an emergency, then don't bother them. And the best way to set it up is to have office hours. Make it known that I will be available this time to this time. Do not bother me unless it's an emergency. And it's not a rash thing. It's just simply setting yourself up for better success. And if you can train your employees to do that and your associates to do that as well, then everybody will be more productive because they'll be less distracted. I don't know what the stats are, but I mean, even just social media alone, I forget, I know it's 10, 20, 30% of people's time, they say, in the office that they're being paid for are spent on social media. And, in some ways that's okay, as long as they're able to find that time elsewhere. But if they're not working from home and they're being distracted by their associates and they're spending time on social media, you can imagine how much time is left for work, which is not a lot, and it's very broken up and it's not focused.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned the social media thing, because that can be like a huge time suck. And I think the bigger call out there is less about it's less about the pause to go like or comment on somebody's post that you saw on Facebook. It's more about that it takes 10 to 15 minutes for you to get back to where you were at before you stopped.
Right.
And so that to me is more so the bigger loss in time is getting back to what you were actually working on. So I like the office hours thing. I've done that as a leader before, and it worked out fantastically. I used to also come in an hour to an hour and a half before everybody, just so that I could have like the first part of my day completely uninterrupted. Nobody was there to bother me. It was quiet, and I could just hammer down and get that first part of my day done. But I think that's a great call out. So, yeah,
and ideally, everybody shouldn't really have to work more than 40 or 50 hours a week.
Yeah.
And if to have a healthy life, just the hours don't add up. In order to sleep as much as you should sleep, in order to work out as much as you should work out, in order to spend the time with family and friends, you need those hours. And I agree with you. I a lot of times will either come in early, or I'll find myself, working the midnight oil in order to get that quiet time. But that time should be being spent sleeping or spending quality time with family. And so what you're doing, I'm not saying you specifically, but anybody does, including myself, is you justify it with saying, well, this is the only time I have to get focused work done, when in reality, it doesn't have to be that way. It's just we've set ourselves up for failure by allowing the constant distractions at work and not not only not requesting people to respect our time and our focus and our energy, but also taking away from other people, when we don't even realize that we're doing it, whether it's a funny meme that we send somebody in the middle of the day and, maybe they're trying to get stuff done so they can go home and enjoy dinner, go to the gym and, spend time with loved ones. And you just took 15 minutes from them. So like you said, if they have to take time to refocus or they get caught off guard and all of a sudden they're down a different tangent, it's can be a lot more destructive than you think. And so having that mentality, I think, will be a big improvement for a lot of businesses moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I want to shift gears a little bit. You mentioned, with your situation specifically, you did have to lay off some of your staff. Want to talk about that a little bit because I think there's a lot of people in that space. And more importantly, I want to kind of dive down the path of making that decision, right? Because I know it's not never an easy decision to make, but I think it's beneficial to talk about how we approach those difficult decisions like that.
Right. So all of our employees are essentially furloughed. We definitely will be taking them back. But it was just, if we had gotten the stimulus funding that was initially intended with the speed that was initially intended, which makes it unfortunate that it wasn't able to be executed how the government hoped. But there was a possibility that we could have just kept everyone on and everybody could have been here working on the process and working on the business and, organizing their areas, doing maintenance, etc. But with the delay, like I said, we still haven't seen anything yet. I just couldn't keep people on and risk that. What if it is another week? What if it is another 2 weeks before we even see $1 in stimulus? We would have run out of cash. And so basically we would have asked people to stay on and work and then not been able to pay them. So everyone, I essentially just had a team meeting and said, look, I think it's best for your own sake that you apply for unemployment. We'll furlough you. We'll hire you back as soon as we pick up again. But for now, at least it's it's an increased unemployment, payment. And so you'll be fine. You'll be, able to survive and live, in some cases make more than you even make working for us, which, was a major, hot topic as far as, what the unemployment compensation was raised to. But hey, I think that in this time, in this situation, nobody should have to, be facing, not being able to put food on the table, not being able to, do a lot of things simply because, their business is laying them off, in large numbers. So I'm happy about it. And I'm happy for our employees that at least they have something, because here in Florida, the unemployment compensation typically is pretty poor. So, from what I've heard, I don't even know if it is survivable, based on, maybe the bare essentials, but I think it was like $285 a week or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty low. I think it's $275 a week. So
yeah,
so it's pretty low.
Right. So it was just, a heart to heart and everybody understood. So, it's just one of those things where everyone's being affected. I think that helps. I think it helps that everyone can relate with each other, and back to that societal shift. I think that people actually will come out of this stronger and more united as a community, and the fact that we're all enduring the same thing. It's not just a pocket that everyone gives pity to for 3 days, and then the next big news story comes out. So everybody's experiencing it together. Everyone's going through the same troubles, from business owners down to, the entry-level employees. So everybody, I think, I encourage them to, focus on their personal lives and take the time, not take it for granted, and spend the time relaxing, refreshing, being healthy, and at home with loved ones.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We do have a question in the comments here. It's from Noel, and I'm not going to butcher the last name. But she asks, what brands or innovators are your biggest inspiration for Wear the Fund?
So Patagonia is my number one. I think I mentioned that earlier in the podcast, but they are a retail, mainly outdoor focused apparel company, and they give back 1% of revenue or 10% of profit, whichever is greater. Currently, we give back 3% of revenue, so we give back quite a bit more. But based on sales, they're giving back a lot more, and we'll probably continue to fine tune that as we have over the years, based on our scaling and the amount of our sales and being able to be competitive. So Patagonia, they're basically in my opinion, the leading sustainable clothing company in the world, if not, the leading sustainability company in the world, just on how they do things, how they are built from the ground up with, the environment, first and foremost in the front of mind, as well as how they treat their employees. They were the first company to ever go overseas and send audit teams. So, to make sure that the factories are treating the employees well, paying them a fair wage. So, they set a lot of standards, and they're just kind of an icon in the, in the conscious commerce, as I call it. From the materials they make to how they treat everyone, they're fantastic. So Patagonia is number one. And then I have to say, just because, I did keep an eye on them, when I was first being inspired and had my WTF epiphany, was Tom's shoes, of course. Their story is fantastic and what they've been able to do and directly correlate, their sales to the impact that they're making with their 1-for-1 program, was, really a genius, business, business move and marketing move to be able to allow the consumer to feel that impact, of, a child somewhere in the world, now being able to wear a pair of shoes versus they're running around barefoot, whether it was in Africa or South America, and make that difference just by buying a pair of their shoes. So, both great companies, but Patagonia number one for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. No, that's a great one. I absolutely love Patagonia because I love their gear, their swag, their stuff. But I have long appreciated their sustainable model. Far before I was able to afford any of their stuff. So they've always been high on my priority list of great companies.
They're expensive, but quality should be, and that's another paradigm shift. I'm confident we'll start to see here and over the next decade is people to start buying quality, start buying local, more and more and more. So, it's going to cost more, but in the long term, it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it is a shift. I think we'll see quality over quantity is coming.
Right.
So I think people are realizing that. So Joshua asks, what's your biggest goal to accomplish during this downtime?
Honestly, probably the biggest goal is to have everything flush on the day-to-day operations side of things. I would say, let's say on any given day, there's, 10 to 30 things that, get postponed or get pushed back to the next day. And that's just kind of a never ending cycle. So my goal is to be at zero for those items. I don't know what day per se that's going to be and what the timeline looks like, but I do know that, I think it's going to be at least another couple of weeks and we should be able to achieve that goal. So is to get flush on the operational side of things to where everything is in its right place and the desk is clean and organized and, the file cabinets aren't in disarray and everything is just, nice and flush. I kind of just pulled that word out of nowhere, but flush I think is a good word for it.
I like it. I liken the list that small business owners have to the honey-do list, right? As fast as you clear it, there's 10 more things that at least in my case, that my wife puts on the list. So it just never ends. So that is, I think, a great goal to focus on accomplishing, and just really knocking out some of those things that have sat on the back end. I know I was talking to another business owner the other day, and they were talking about how they've been really hammering down on all like their business, their building maintenance stuff, because the nature of their business is if they shut down a portion of their interior space to do maintenance, then they lose out on significant amounts of revenue. So
right. And I fell prey to a bad habit. I forgot to throw in their personal as well. So flush on the personal tasks as well. Got the tunnel vision with the business, and which again, breaking that habit. Personally, there's at least a couple dozen items that promised a family member that I do, or help somebody with something, and put it off. There's always the next pressing business task. And, that would, I would say, be at the top of the goal, is to get those personal tasks knocked out as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Definitely appreciate that one as well. So, so let's kind of wrap this up. What's your final parting words for business owners as they get through this?
I would say just be a summary of what I've said, during this interview is, do whatever you can to survive. That's what entrepreneurship is about, regardless, whether it's during an epidemic or pandemic, or, any other day or year. We're, as entrepreneurs, we are survivors, we're risk takers. If you want to see the other side, I'm sure there's be some people that, maybe thrown in the towel at this point, just because they kind of were maybe on their way out already, or burn out to the point where they're saying, hey, here's a good reason to throw in the towel. And, but if you truly believe in your business and you're struggling right now, just do what you have to do to survive. Halt payments on anything you can do, pause cash flow going out anywhere you can. It's pretty much universal now that people, are expecting it anyways. So, do what you can. If you haven't got your stimulus applications in, do that today, as soon as possible. But survive. And then, once you've exhausted your resources to survive, start working on the small things, the fundamentals that, again, when that day happens where all of a sudden, like we typically are, we're getting, 5, 10, 20 inquiries a day, quotes needed, things like that. You're operationally sound, not on your heels, because that also can be extremely negative. If, all of a sudden sales come rushing back and you didn't do anything to repair. So that would be my biggest advice, would be low-hanging fruit first, survival first, and then focus on fundamentals.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. So where can people find you? Where can we find WearTheFund and Sam Lewis? So personally, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Pretty sure you can just search me easily, follow me. I trying to more, again, bring in more of that personal life and myself to the world. And so if you add me as a friend, I'll accept. And then as far as WearTheFund, we are on mostly Facebook and Instagram, our primary audiences. We also have Twitter, but all three of them are at the handle WearTheFund. Okay, awesome. And then your website, WearTheFund.com, correct? Correct. Yep. Awesome. We'll make sure we drop that in the show notes as well, so anybody that's not listening live today can go find it. And I definitely appreciate your time today and appreciate your knowledge. It's it's awesome to see small business owners pushing through in this challenging time. So thank you for being on, and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. All right.